Let's continue learning the method of knitting the body. For convenience in explanation, we will divide the body into 4 sections. Section 1 requires knitting the front and back difference. Section 2 is worked even in rounds. Section 3 involves knitting patterns and pockets. Section 4 knits K1 TBL stitch patterns like this. After finishing all sections, sew together the sides of the pocket lining separately. The new stitch technique used is the backwards loop increase. Next, please watch me demonstrate. We'll start with section 1. Section 1 is work back and forth on the back piece. First, starting from the first stitch, count the corresponding number of stitches for the back piece to the left, and separate them with a stitch marker. After completing this, work the first row of section 1. Knit 1 by 1 accordingly, continuing to knit until you reach the loops right of the marker. Start with the first stitch. And place a mark on the loop of the first stitch. Continue knitting across the row. The first row is now complete. Next, work row 2. We will work this row on the wrong side. Leave the remaining loops on the needle. Purl all stitches. Continuing to purl until you finish the loops at the marker. The second row is now complete. Next, on the right side, knit all stitches. The marker will remain on the right side. On the wrong side, purl all stitches. If you can distinguish the position here, you can remove the marker. Repeat this process. Continue to knit the remaining rows of section 1. The braid at the marker is the first row of section 1. The loops on the needle are the last row. The sample now has a total of 4 rows completed. Now, section 1 of the sample is finished. Some row numbers have been omitted. After completing section 1, you can remove the marker from the bottom. Going forward, you can mark using this method. This makes it convenient to count the rows. Continue to learn section 2. Begin knitting the first round. Start with the back piece position. Knit all stitches as knit stitches. After completing this, you need to temporarily secure the loops of the right sleeve. Then, count out the corresponding number of stitches for the front piece from the left, and separate them with a stitch marker. The remaining loops should correspond to the number of stitches for the left sleeve. Next, perform underarm increase stitches. Use the backwards loop method to add stitches here. Refer to the chart for the exact number of increase stitches. The sample has fewer stitches. Don't make the backwards loop increases too loose. After completing this, knit each stitch one by one accordingly for the corresponding number of stitches for the front piece. Knit the first stitch of the connection tighter. After completing the corresponding number of stitches for the front piece, temporarily secure the corresponding number of stitches for the left sleeve. Once done, perform the underarm increase stitches on this side. Again, use the backwards loop method to increase stitches. The number of increase stitches should be the same as before. This way, the first round is completed. Continue knitting the second round. This round is all knit stitches. Pay attention. When you reach the underarm increase position, while knitting the stitch, go a little slower, to prevent the loop from slipping off. And, don't pull the lower yarn strand too long. After completing the second round, continue to finish the remaining rounds in section 2. For the remaining rounds, just knit the stitches normally. This way, we finish section 2. Note that section 2 in the sample is abbreviated. After completing section 2, continue with section 3. Before starting to knit, begin from the last stitch, refer to the chart, and count back to match the corresponding stitch count, and separate them with a stitch marker. The stitch right after the stitch marker is where you will crochet the hollow star pattern. After marking, start the first round. Begin by knitting the stitches normally, continuing until there is 1 stitch left before the stitch marker. Once completed, refer to the demonstration of the hollow star pattern at the shoulder part position, and crochet the corresponding pattern. Here, the sample is worked with knit stitches directly, without crocheting any patterns. After completing the first round, continue with the second and third rounds. Before starting each of these 2 rounds, begin from the last stitch. Count back the corresponding number of stitches, and separate them with a stitch marker. The stitch right after the stitch marker corresponds to the pattern on the crochet chart. The crochet method for the pattern is the same as the position corresponding to the shoulder parts. After completing the first 3 rounds, continue normally with rounds 4 through 17. For all these rounds, knit stitches can be used throughout. After finishing the first 17 rounds, I will continue to demonstrate round 18. Using the sample. Before starting, count back the corresponding number of stitches from the last stitch, and separate them with a stitch marker. Then, knit 1 by 1 accordingly, continuing until the stitch just before the stitch marker. After completing that, when you reach the pocket position, you need to use the chained cast on method to cast on the corresponding number of stitches. First, flip it to the wrong side like this, and use another straight needle to cast on. Start by inserting the needle into this loop and working 1 stitch. Do not loosen this loop. Place a stitch marker here. Pull the yarn slightly tighter at the beginning. And the first stitch is cast on. Continue casting on normally. Until you have cast on the corresponding number of stitches. Count out the same number of loops on the left needle as the added stitches, and temporarily secure them. These loops will be used later to knit the pocket lining. Next, Knit all the remaining loops as knit stitches. Place a stitch marker to separate them. This way, round 18 is completed. Continue with round 19. Knit one by one accordingly. Keep knitting until you reach the second stitch to the right of the stitch marker. Once done, alternate between purl stitches and K1 TBL stitches. Continue until you finish the stitch just to the left of the stitch marker. The first stitch should be a tight purl. This stitch is worked as a purl stitch perfectly. Next, knit all the remaining stitches. Finish this round this way. After completing round 19, continue with rounds 20 to 24. For these rounds, whenever you encounter the purl texture here, work it as a purl stitch. The K1 TBL stitch texture, work it as a K1 TBL stitch. For all other positions, knit stitches as usual. After completing the first 24 rounds, starting from round 25, knit all stitches. Continue knitting until the third to last round of section 3. Once finished, leave the loops on the needle temporarily. Be mindful to prevent the loops from slipping off. Next, start working on the pocket lining. First, transfer the temporarily secured loops to a straight needle. After transferring, start working row 1. For the first stitch, join the yarn with the corresponding color. Leave a tail of about 30 centimeters at the beginning. Work row 1 on the right side. Knit 1 M1 L increase stitch. After completing it, knit each stitch accordingly. Continue until all loops on the needle are worked. After completing it, knit one more M1 L increase stitch. This completes row 1. Next, always purl on the wrong side. And knit on the right side. Continue until you have completed the corresponding row numbers. The last row should be finished on the right side. After completing it, leave a tail of about 30 centimeters at the end. Break the yarn. Leaving the loops on the needle. And place the piece inside. This way, the lining is completed. Continue with the second to last round. Before knitting, refer to the chart and use a stitch marker to separate the stitches at the end. Then, start with regular knit stitches, continuing until you finish the loops to the right of the stitch marker. After completing that, combine and knit the loops from the lining. Once done, continue with regular knit stitches for the remaining loops. After completing this round, continue working even to finish the final round. This way, that concludes section 3. Now, let's move on to section 4. Section 4 mainly involves purl stitches and K1 TBL stitches. For the first few rounds, some positions still require knit stitches. In the sample, everything is done with purl stitches and K1 TBL stitches. The stitch count for a complete pattern repeat varies between different sizes. Please refer to the chart for specific details when knitting. After completing it, I will demonstrate the bind-off method using a sample. Here, we use the 1x1 ribbing bind-off method. First, knit 1 stitch and purl 1 stitch. Then bind off 1 stitch. Switch the position of the yarn. Knit 1 stitch. Bind off 1 stitch. Continue switching the position of the yarn. Purl 1 stitch. Bind off 1 stitch. For each subsequent step, always switch the position of the yarn. If there is a horizontal line below, then knit a stitch. This means the yarn, after switching, is perfectly positioned below. If there is a twisted stitch braid below, then purl a stitch. The yarn will be just right above. Follow this method to finish binding off this round. Finally, leave a tail about 15 centimeters before cutting the yarn. And secure the yarn tail. Then use this yarn tail to sew a few stitches at the beginning and end, ensuring there are no noticeable notches. This way, binding off is complete. Next, sew the sides of the pocket lining to the main part. First, thread the yarn tail onto a darning needle. When sewing, pick up one strand at the corresponding position on the main part. And pick up a few strands along the edge on the lining. Sew together roughly evenly. When sewing, try not to let the stitches show on the right side, and try to sew in the same column position on the main part. Sew the other side using the same method. This way, the body is complete. Next, we'll learn the technique for knitting the sleeves. For convenience in explaining, we will divide the sleeve into the sleeve body section 1, sleeve body section 2, sleeve body section 3, and the sleeve cuff. Start with the cuff, then knit section 1 and section 2 of the sleeve body. Finally, combine the cuff and the sleeve body to knit section 3 of the sleeve body. The new stitch techniques used are SPO and K2 tog. Now, please watch my demonstration. First, knit one cuff. The method for knitting the sleeve cuff is the same as for the collar edge, just with a different stitch count. Please refer to the demonstration for the collar edge to complete the sleeve cuff. Finish knitting the sleeve cuff. After completing it, transfer the loops to a circular needle, and leave a tail of about 15 centimeters before breaking the yarn. Once the sleeve cuff is completed, now, I will use one of the sleeves as an example to explain the sleeve body. First, transfer the held loops to 3 straight needles. Next, locate the position for the underarm increase. This is the side edge of section 1 of the body. This is where you need to increase stitches for the underarm. Find the middle stitch approximately. Use another straight needle. Pick up these 2 strands. Take out the new yarn. For convenience in watching, the sample uses random yarn. Join the yarn. The join is completed. This also counts as completing one knit stitch. Continue to pick up 2 such strands on the left side. Knit 1 stitch. Repeat this process. Pick up and knit the remaining stitches in this half segment, ensuring they correspond one by one. The sample has fewer stitches. If you can't find the exact position, an approximate location is fine. After completing, at this junction, pick up and knit 1 stitch. Ensure there are no noticeable large gaps. After completing, work the stitches on the needle one by one into knit stitches. After completing, we reach the side edge of section 1 of the body. Let's take a look at the uneven braids along this edge. It is the first stitch on the edge. The next flat braid, which is the second stitch on the edge. The horizontal carried yarn between these 2 stitches forms chain hole spaces. Each hole corresponds to 1 row. When picking up and knitting along the side edge, pick up 1 stitch for each row. Following this pattern, pick up the corresponding number of stitches along this side edge. Make the first stitch slightly tighter. After completing, at this junction, continue to pick up and knit 1 more stitch. Then, for the half segment with increased stitches under the arm, pick up the remaining stitches one by one. After picking up all the stitches, distribute the loops roughly evenly onto 3 straight needles. This way, the first round is completed. Continue with rounds 2 to 14, working knit stitches evenly. Some rounds are omitted in the sample. After completing these rounds, I will continue explaining round 15, where you need to decrease stitches. Start by knitting 2 knit stitches. Then knit caspo. That is, slip 1 stitch knitwise. Knit the next stitch. And pass the slipped stitch over. This completes the spo. Then knit the remaining stitches one by one, continuing until you have 3 loops left. After completing these, work a K2 tog. Finally, knit 1 knit stitch. That's it. We have completed round 15. For convenience in explanation, we will refer to rounds with decreases as decrease rounds. Starting from round 15, work even for the corresponding number of rounds. Just work 1 decrease round. The method for working the decrease round is identical to round 15. Follow this pattern and continue until you complete the corresponding rounds for section 2. That's it. We have completed section 1. After completing section 1, move on to section 2. For section 2, crochet the pattern in the corresponding position. I will not crochet this part in the sample. Refer to the chart and watch the demonstration of the shoulder parts pattern and proceed with crocheting. You need to continue decreasing stitches in section 2. The decrease pattern follows that of section 1. You can also directly refer to the chart for section 2 to knit. That's it. We have completed section 2. After completing section 2, move on to section 3. In the first round, you need to knit together with the cuff. Start by placing the side of the cuff without K1 TBL braid facing up. Turn it to the outside. Then, do it like this. Hold the 2 fabric pieces together. First, insert the needle into the first loop of the front piece knitwise. Pay attention. Keep the working yarn below. Then wrap the yarn over the needle. Next, insert into the first loop of the back piece purlwise. Work 1 purl stitch. Release the loop on the back piece. Then wrap the yarn under the needle. And pick up this loop through the front loop. This way, you have completed 1 joined stitch. Continue to join the second stitch. Insert the needle into the front loop knitwise. Wrap the yarn over the needle. Then insert into the loop of the back piece purlwise. Work a purl stitch. Wrap the yarn under the needle again. And pick up the loop. This way, you have completed another joined stitch. Repeat this process to join 2 more stitches, working them correspondingly. Be mindful to prevent the loops from slipping off. Once done, note that the total stitches of the front piece are more than those of the back piece. Therefore, you need to decrease stitches on the front piece. Now, the chart has reached the position for K2 tog. First, insert through 2 loops on the front piece. And join it with 1 loop from the back piece. Next, after joining every 4 stitches correspondingly, combine 2 stitches from the front piece with 1 stitch from the back piece. Follow this pattern until the remaining stitch counts of both pieces are identical. There's no need to decrease and join anymore. Finish knitting this round. Now, the sample has completed the first round. Continue to finish the remaining rounds of section 3. The sample is now complete. Finally, you need to bind off. Here, binding off means binding off while knitting the stitches. After binding off 1 stitch, the braid may not be very noticeable here. You can mark this braid. Continue binding off while knitting the stitches. When only 1 loop remains, leave a yarn tail of about 15 centimeters and cut the yarn. Pull the yarn tail through directly. Thread it through a sewing needle. Pass the sewing needle through the starting braid. Then, pass it from the center of the last braid to the back. Adjust the tension. Then tie a knot on the wrong side, and weave in the end. After completing, sew a few stitches with the yarn tail at the ending position and starting position of the sleeve cuff. Ensure there are no noticeable holes or notches. This way, one sleeve is finished. For the other sleeve, in the first round, start picking up stitches from the middle stitch of the increases under the arm. Also pick up one stitch from each side of the boundary, where the increases on both sides of the underarm meet. Follow the previous demonstration to complete the other sleeve as well. This way, the sleeves are finished. Use the same method for the collar edge. Sew it and then hide the yarn tail. Next, we will learn how to make decorations, including petals, stems and leaves. For the petals, crochet them first, then sew them to the corresponding position. The stems and leaves need to be embroidered. Now, please watch my demonstration. First, let's learn how to crochet and sew the petals. The petals are crocheted using 2 strands of the corresponding yarn held together. I will continue demonstrating with a single strand of thick cotton yarn. Start with a foundation chain of 12 stitches. After completing that, make 3 chain stitches. Then, work into the 4th chain from the hook. Pick up the top half loop of the chain. Work a double crochet. Don't make the double crochet too tight. Keep it slightly loose. After completing that, on the adjacent chain stitch on the left side, pick up the top half loop of the chain, and work 2 double crochets at the same time. Continue picking up the top half loop of the chains for the rest of the work. Continue this process on the next 3 chains on the left side. Work 2 double crochets in each stitch. After completing that, on the left side chain, work 1 double crochet first. Then work 3 chains. After completing that, continue in the same chain, and make 1 slip stitch. Slightly tighten it. Then, on the adjacent chain on the left side, make 1 slip stitch. Slightly tighten it. Make 3 chains. Work 1 double crochet in the same position. Then, on the left side 5 chains, work 2 double crochets in each chain. After completing that, work 1 chain. Leave a tail of about 20 centimeters, then cut the yarn. Pull tight. Hide this short yarn tail. This way, one petal is completed. Next, use the reserved yarn tail to sew the petal into the gap between these two patterns on the shoulder parts. Slightly overlap the middle of the petal. Then, temporarily secure it in the corresponding position with a stitch marker. Pay attention, the yarn tail is at the top right corner. Next, sew along this edge. Let both sides curl up slightly. As for the specific shape, you can also adjust it according to your preference. When sewing, make sure not to sew into the back fabric piece. This way, one petal is sewn on. Next, following the same method, complete and sew on the remaining petals in this circle. That concludes the petals section. Next, we'll learn about the stems and leaves below the shoulder parts, above the pocket and underneath the sleeves. The making method for the stems and leaves in these areas is identical. For convenience in explanation, we will refer to the longest stem in each group as stem 1, and the shorter one as stem 2, and the shortest one as stem 3. First, make each of the stems separately, then embroider the leaves. Now, let me demonstrate first, and then you can follow along. The making method for all three stems is the same. I'll demonstrate using stem 3 as an example. Cut a piece of corresponding color yarn about 80 centimeters long, fold it in half. Then leave a tail of about 20 centimeters at the end. Fold the remaining part in half again. Insert the darning needle into the folded section. Twist it about 25 times. Without removing the darning needle, insert it through the loop here. This will twist it into a rope. Thread the yarn tail onto the darning needle. Pull it through. That's it. Stem 3 is now complete. Following the same method, continue to make stem 1 and stem 2. For stem 1, you will need a total yarn length of about 184 centimeters. Fold it in half once, and leave a tail of about 60 centimeters at the end. Twist the rope about 40 times. For stem 2, use a total yarn length of about 128 centimeters. Fold it in half once, and leave a tail of about 40 centimeters at the end. Twist the rope about 30 times. Here, I have already made one of each. The yarn lengths provided are for reference only. Adjust according to specific needs. If the rope is too long or too short, you can unravel the yarn tails. Adjust the reserved length here. And rewind it again. After completing all 3 stems, start embroidering the leaves while securing the stem. I will demonstrate using one of the shoulder part stem and leaf groups. Begin by embroidering the leaves on both sides of stem 1, with the neckline facing up. Before embroidering, temporarily secure the top of stem 1, underneath the leftmost flower in this group. You can slightly reserve a little at the top. Then, thread the yarn tail onto a darning needle. Align the bottom roughly with the middle flower. Join the bottom to the color change point here. Secure it temporarily. Let the stem bend naturally. Then take out stem 2 and stem 3. Place them roughly. The top of stem 2 should be underneath the right flower. Stem 3 should be underneath the middle flower. Ensure the tail of stem 2 can join to stem 1. The tail of stem 3 can join to stem 2. The specific placement can also be adjusted according to preference. After roughly determining the positions, start embroidering leaves on both sides of stem 1. Arrange the leaves randomly. Just make sure the interval between the 2 leaves in this section is slightly bigger, making it convenient to join stem 2. Start embroidering the leaves. First, ensure you pull out the needle with a slight pickup of thread from the stem, or stitch out right next to the stem. Then stitch in at the same position. Pull out the needle about 1 centimeter apart. Place the thread underneath the needle. Pull through. Don't pull too tight. Keep the tension moderate. Then stitch in from outside the loop. This way, 1 leaf is embroidered. Repeat this process And continue embroidering leaves on both sides. Embroider a total of 6 to 8 leaves. Once completed, leave a slight tail at the top. Embroider 1 stitch on each side. Here you can slightly incorporate the yarn of the flower, or keep it slightly tight. After finishing, tie off and weave in the ends on the wrong side. This way, the leaves on both sides of the stem 1 are embroidered. Next, follow the same method to embroider the leaves for the other 2 stems. Stem 2 will have 4 to 5 leaves, and stem 3 will have 2 to 3 leaves. Before embroidering, temporarily secure the top first. Join the bottom to the existing stem. At the top, embroider 1 stitch on each side. Refer to the previous demonstration for guidance. Finish embroidering the leaves for these 2 stems. After completing them, embroider the remaining stems and leaves on the shoulder parts. Then, following the same method, embroider stems and leaves above the pocket and underneath the sleeves. Pay attention. Joint the bottom of the pocket with the color of the lining. Join the bottom of the sleeve roughly to where it joins with the merged knit. Up to this point, that concludes our tutorial for this sweater. If you have any questions during the process, don't hesitate to reach us via our website. Susan's Family, supporting your handwork experience, sharing the joy of life. Thank you all for watching. See you in the next episode.